Hey, all right. Oh, React front end positions. I see. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Everybody's like React, Redux. That's what they're looking. I think that's probably just job recs that have been copy and pasted for years now. I mean, how long we had Redux? We had Redux forever. So, yeah, which is funny because here's the homepage for Redux, and I was actually looking up the word Redux because I always thought it meant two, like a second, but I guess it means brought back or revived. And this is hilarious. Like the 1980s were far more than just a 50s Redux. Like I don't even think they were like I don't I've never thought to myself like, "Oh, 80s are a 50s Redux." 80s seemed very 80s, much unlike every other decade. It definitely had their own personality for sure. If you want like watch Wonder Woman 1984, not that was a great movie. Anywho, so let's do some Redux. So we did have a poll and got a lot of votes. It's awesome. And the Redux won TypeScript and Redux, but I think we can actually get through this fast enough where maybe we can also do the module federation stuff because I think it's actually really cool as well, and certainly that one of those things you're never going to find on any other channel probably is around the module federation stuff. So definitely worth having a look at, particularly if you're in big companies. Module federation is great. Yeah, the 80s. 80s is not the 50s Redux, meaning brought back. I definitely don't see that at all. The 80s being the 50s. Okay, so let's clone this thing and get started. So let me go into TMP and then get clone R2do base to do Redux. Oh, I've also been thinking I looked at Redux toolkit, and now I'm thinking actually that we probably need to do a video on just that, on just Redux toolkit, because I think it's different enough where everything's kind of wrapped and it's its own thing. So probably we're doing a video on just that. Also, if you're just here for the fun, jump on over to Lightbot and you can go and change the lights back there. Let's go with, I know By the Alphabet wanted to see his stuff, but he can go and add that. So there you go, hitting on green there. And yes, I will change at some point the Saturn V to be something else. So okay. So what do we got in here? We have let me just start by, let's see, what do we need? We need to yarn this, but we also need to add Redux and Redux React, isn't it? Or is it? Let me just make sure that the right thing. React Redux. It always seems reversed to me because a lot of other packages. Hey, Alex. Alex! Hey, so good to see you. I hope everything's cool. Happy Friday, indeed. Yeah, it's been a good day. Did some filming, and yeah, it's good. And looking forward to a great weekend. Gonna go do a road trip with my wife before next week. I start a new job on Monday, so that's always fun. Okay, so it looks like we've installed our everything and also Redux and React Redux. So let's start this up and see what we've got. So the way that I created this app was to do a template from Chakra. It's the TypeScript template from Chakra. And pretty standard kind of hello world template, except that it's got this light dark mode toggle. Actually, I'm going to go and take a look at how that works, because I'm sort of like, oh, there, color mode switcher. How does this thing actually work? Use color mode. Oh, okay, interesting. So they've got like a use color mode as part of. That's cool. So really light and dark mode is actually like built in to Chakra. That's really cool. Okay, so we can switch like light and dark, but more importantly, obviously, there's 5 components here. That's one of them. The top bar is another one, and it includes this load button over here that we're going to use for asynchronous loading. We have a to-do list, which is going to list our to-dos. And then down the bottom, we've got another component that has this input field and also an add to do, but none of this works. So we got to go make it work. Let me just catch up on comments here. So I'm hanging in there. Awesome. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good to hear. Ooh, you did module federation? We should talk. That's awesome. A short video on customizing your terminal. You know what's interesting? I actually did customize this recently. I went with a different font and also a different prompt. So I'm trying ligatures, but I can't find anywhere that actually makes use of the ligatures. And according to the iTerm2 documentation, ligatures slow things down. So I'll probably just take that out. But I love me some ligatures when they're there. So ligatures are like these things right here, like actually that's just italics, but things like this one right here with the equals greater than, it just becomes it looks nice. I like it. Okay, so let's take a look at our. I actually have to rebuild the server here. So we have our store, and our store has an interface for what a to-do is. Pretty simple. It's got an ID, it's got a text, and then it's got a done Boolean. And then there's all these handy little helper functions that are basically just functional programming versions of a to-do list manager that, so you can update them, toggle them, remove them. And the reason that I have these is because I really want to concentrate more on the flow of the state management system as opposed to like the actual mechanics of changing the to-do list. So there you go. Hi, Austin. Okay, so we're going to delete all that. And we're not going to expose those because those are going to be part of our reducer, which we're going to build in a second. But I'm actually going to go and kind of rejigger this a little bit because in most Redux systems that I've seen, the store is actually its own directory, and store.ts is part of that and in there. And I'm going to move this interface over into a types file, types.ts. Oops, how about type? I wonder what S is. Yeah, I miss type extensions, and then I'm like, whoa, who's that? Okay, so here we go. We got our interface, and also we need to go and bring that in from our types. Import from to-do from the types. Okay, cool. So what we're going to have is this reducer. Very similar to what you'd have is a use reducer. In fact, you could argue that most of Redux is now actually built into React. Oh, wow, I could actually get a marketplace thing for my S files. And a reducer takes two things. It takes a state, which would be the state of the store, and then it takes an action. And those actions are going to be applied to the store and mutate the state. And then that's going to be published out to the UI. So let's start off with our actions. So those would be the kind of things that we're going to do to the state. Maybe that's a weird place to start, but it works for me. So I'm going to do that. So how do we properly type our actions? Well, so the way that it's recommended to do it is you create some constants. So in this case, I'm going to do like add to do. And that's going to be the action for adding a to do. And they're sort of symmetric like that. I mean, yeah, you can make this whatever value you want, but if you're in the debugger, it's nice to be able to see that that's add to do. I actually got a question about whether you could use an enum for this. Potentially you could, but unless you set the value to like add to do, enums are going to give you by default integers, which may not be what you want. So, and would be, I guess, harder to debug if it's just going to be ascending integers. You're going to be looking at that like, ooh, one is add to do. That doesn't make a lot of sense. In this case, you could just look at it and see, oh, it's add to do. So. Because there's just a lot of boilerplate in Redux, I'm going to go and copy and paste. I've got off screen the done project, so we'll just kind of bring it in. I'll just explain it as we do it. So the next thing we need to do is define the types of actions. So an action includes the type and then also a payload, depending on if the action needs a payload. So what we do is we create a bunch of these. So it's a type, and then it would be the type of, say, let's say add to do. And then add to do doesn't have any extra data on it, right? It takes the contents of this and then just adds it into the list and then sets this to empty. So we don't need any extra content there. The store is going to manage that field. But let's go and look at one that maybe does have that. So let's do like set to dos. And that's just going to replace the entire set of to-dos with new to-dos. That's what's going to happen when we do this load over here. We're going to set to-dos. So in that case, the payload would be an array of the to-dos, which we need to import somewhere. So let's go do that. Wow, my typing today is just spot on. Look at that. Okay, cool. Why do you not like that? I like that. Module store declares to do locally, but is not exported. Really? Exports interface to do. Oh, I see. That's. I don't know what you're talking about there. That looks good to me. Module store declares to do, but doesn't export it. It's not exported. Oh, I see. That's going types. You're right. Sorry about that. TypeScript, you're so right. So we're going to have a bunch of actions. So let me again just kind of do our copy and paste thing there. Let's go and grab the cake out of the oven after it's been done. And I'll go through all the different action types that we've got. So we're going to have a set to-dos. As I said, that's going to go and manage when you load a new set of to-dos, the add to-do. And then when you're managing the list of to-dos, there's a way to delete, a way to update. Update would be to update the text of the to-do. So the payload in that case is going to need the ID, which would correspond to the to-do ID, and then the new text that we'd have over there. Toggle to-do basically just flips the done state. And then set new to-do is what we send to the reducer when we update this field down here with a new piece of text. So that's the whole... Those are all the actions we want to be able to send to that reducer. So, okay. So let's go back over here to our store and start implementing our Redux Reducer. So we'll call this the Redux implementation. And let's see. So we'll create a function. Let me just make sure that I don't wind myself into a hole. Okay. So we'll call it a to-do reducer. And it's going to take a state, which we have yet to really define, and then an action, which is one of those action types that we've defined already. So let's go and define our store. Go back here to our types, and we'll create a new thing called store. And it's going to be whatever we want to manage in terms of our global state. So it's going to have a list of to-dos. Let me just finish this up before I look at the comments again. So that's going to be our amazing state is going to be our list of to-dos and our new to-do. Let me go and look at what Random Rabbit has it for me, because I'm now glued by this brilliant red thing. Hey, Jack Tarrington, your professional opinion. Do you think that starting a new web app, or would you just? Oh, I see. I would probably not go with Redux. It really depends. I mean, a lot of it depends on what the folks in the company are familiar with, or what the project is doing. If you have Redux already, you just set a new project, so that's clearly not the case. Are other projects using Redux, and there's a lot of internal knowledge? If there are, then maybe so. But I do think, honestly, there are better solutions out there. Valshio and Zustand, I think, are fantastic. And then if you've got more exotic state needs, if you got that one that models well as atoms, there's Jotai. And then if you're doing more of a finite state machine type interface, then XState is a fantastic state manager. And then obviously you don't need any. You've always got, as you say, use context and use state and the rest of it. If you want to just build it out yourself and not pay any of the freight on any of these state managers. Although I will say Redux is actually pretty lean still, which is cool. Okay, so we've got our store defined now. So let's define that our state is that store. And then we're going to set up an initial value where the to-dos is an empty array and new to-do is an empty string, just like that. Okay, and then we've got an action down here. And sort of by convention, most folks use a big old switch statement in here. So, and this is why, like when I look at like Redux Toolkit, I definitely think would do a different video on an extra video on that, just around TypeScript and the Redux Toolkit, because they've simplified this a lot, which is great. Okay, cool. Thanks, man. Thank you to do Random Rabbit. It's a great name, by the way. Okay, so let's take any old one in here. We'll call it set to dos. And we can actually, let's see, can I bring it in from actions? Ooh, look at you. Nice. And so this is FP style. So what's going to happen is this to-do reducer is going to take a state. There's an initial value, but in reality, this state will be managed by Redux, and then an action type, and it returns a new state that has that whatever action it is applied to it. And that's a real kind of functional programming paradigm that I'm going to get into in the functional programming for TypeScript video that I'm going to do and talk about, you know, idempotent functions and immutable functions. And this is sort of an example of a good immutable function, right? So you give it a state, you give it something to do with it, and then it creates a new state for you that then replaces the existing state in total. So in this case, with the to-dos, we're going to take everything that's in the existing state, which would just be the to-dos and the new to-do, and then replace the to-dos with whatever is coming in the action payload, which is pretty cool. So if you look at this, right, what this is doing is TypeScript is actually smart enough to figure out that I'm switching on set to-dos here, and it's automatically figured out the contents of this action type. So for set to-dos, then the payload is going to be a to-do array, and this is automatically figured out that, look, it's hinting me on that. So if I go down to payload, or if I can I go over there? Yeah, payload is a property of a to-do array. So that's really cool. Like a big benefit of using TypeScript here is that you're getting that kind of hinting, which is awesome. So that's really it. Then when it comes to synchronous actions, it doesn't really get much simpler than that. And the only extra thing is that in terms of default, you want to return the state. And that's actually where Redux and Use Reducer vary a little. With Use Reducer, you would throw a new error in here and, you know, like unknown action. But that's really the only difference between a reducer that's built for Redux and a reducer that's built for Use Reducer. And just look at the comments. Hey, David, started using Valshio last week for my senior project. That's cool. Where are you a senior? And it's awesome and super simple. It is. It is a different paradigm than Redux. So Redux is what is an example of what we call unidirectional data flow. So you've got this store, you've got the UI. The UI sends an action over to the store then updates and then sends essentially like a new state back into the UI, which is re-rendered. Whereas Valshio is a bi-directional interface. You can just set the values directly, and then, well, yeah, you do get the you do get those updates, but you don't have to go and create actions. So you can just go and set values directly, which is really cool. I would say for small projects, it's wonderful. Definitely worth doing. Okay, so let me save myself a whole lot of typing and embarrassment and just replace out this section here, and I'll go through it, and yeah, it's pretty simple. So, oops, look at all these things that are now undefined. Oh no. So let's go and add a bunch of those in. It's really just a question of imports. The action type. Did I mess that up? I probably did. Oh, there you go. Okay. So yeah, set new to-dos. It just set new to do sets the string to the payload. And then each one of these other ones, like update to do, it basically just calls that simple or helper function. If I do command K, command I can see that this update to do works in pretty much exactly the same way as our reducer does. So it's a functional programming type API here. So update to do, it takes a list of to-dos, it takes an ID that you want to set the value on, takes the string, and then returns you a fresh new array of to-dos with that one thing tweaked. Dunwoody in Minneapolis, man, Minnesota. It's got to be cold in Minneapolis right now. A lot colder than it is here. Vishal, yeah, my thoughts on Redux Toolkit, definitely, yeah. I mean, Redux is what people consider big, usable for big projects. So yeah, certainly. And in fact, I think I'll do a video on TypeScript and Redux Toolkit. So there you go. Slices instead of a switch statement. I haven't played around with it. I'm excited. I anything that makes Redux a little simpler and less boilerplatey, I'm a fan. Okay. And then obviously these are all defined, not obviously, but these are all defined up here in the standard interface and functions. And again, I just didn't want to go through all the rigmarole of dealing with that. So, anyway, let's just walk through one, like that update to do. It basically uses a map. That map then goes through and says, okay, well, given this particular to-do, if the ID matches, then take the incoming text. Otherwise, use the original text that was there. And that basically just alters the text of one thing, but returns an entirely new array of to-dos. Yeah, I bet it's very cold. David, how cold? Is like, I saw minus 22 on one of the things. That's just mind-blowingly cold. So that's craziness. So now we've got our reducer, we've got our actions, we've got all that sort of stuff. Now we just need to actually kind of connect this all to Redux. We haven't done anything really with Redux yet. So let's go do that. Why isn't that importing properly? So let's go over here. Action type, that's exported. What's your problem? TypeScript? Oh, actions type. There we go. That's fine. It's always me. It's always the end user. It's always me. I'm the bad one. So there we go. Create store from Redux. Oh, and I would say an important thing here is, when you get libraries like Redux, you've got Redux and then you've got React Redux. That's just, they have, you could use Redux in a CLI. You could use Redux in Vue app. You could, wherever. So it's basically a way of managing state. And then that React Redux gives you the bindings. In this case, we're going to use some hooks that then connect that to Redux or to React. So, okay. So let's create our store. And in this case, all we need to do is give it the reducer. So let's see, I think we call that to-do reducer, if memory serves. So let's go and export that as our store. All right, are we still working? Well, we're still working because nobody's actually importing store yet. So let's go do that. Let's go and import store. Never feels like my fault until you realize it's always your fault. So true. So true. All right, here we go. So let's go into our store. Sometimes in a way, programming languages are harsh, but you at least know where you stand with them, right? So React Redux. So we need to provide, let's just make sure that I'm getting that right. Yeah. What's your problem? Oh, I think I know what it is. Okay. We need the types for it. So let's go and add that as well. Why doesn't this have types? This doesn't make any sense. Like it's come on, it's 2021. Like it should be shipping with types. And we do that in development mode. That's just going to get it so that TypeScript is once again happy. Anyway, as I was saying, you always know where you stand with a compiler, which is nice. Okay, so not all of the state managers that we're going to look at in this series have a provider, but Redux is one that does. So we need to provide then the store, and that's going to power then either the connects, which some people use, or it will power up the, what's my problem now? So, export default store. Sure, why not? Okay. So there you go. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Awesome sauce. So not all of the state managers we're going to look at need a provider. Jotai needs a provider. Valshio does not need a provider, which is nice. Nor does Zustand. And why wouldn't you want a provider? Well, if you're going to do micro FEs, it's really nice to not require a provider, because then you can have multiple micro FEs on the page and they're talking with each other through a shared store. But as a requirement of the host page, you don't need to add a provider, which is super, super nice. All right. 'Tis true. Yes. Good for you for making the switch to TypeScript. It definitely is a thing. And from what I hear, there is limited material on YouTube, so I'm happy to help out and provide that. Okay, so now we've got our app. Let's see, are we serving this thing? Is it not blowing up? Is it in a window that we can all look at? That would be nice too. All right. Whoa, hey, there we go. I've got the comments on one side, and there you go. So looks like we're happy, but we're not doing anything with this. So let's go and do that. So let's go and add first. And I'm going to go and bring in the hooks. So use dispatcher, use dispatch. And then what's the other one? This is what I get for like doing all these videos kind of back to back. It's like, wait a second, I get them all confused. Okay, so we're going to bring in use selector and use dispatch from React Redux. So dispatch is what we would do to then dispatch one of those actions to the store. And we'll get dispatch right here, use dispatch. And then to get the data, so we need, in this case, we need the value of new to do, because we're going to set it. That's going to be one action. And we're also going to add to do, which is a different action. So we need the to do, we need the new to do. Right, and we're going to use the selector, and that's going to take a state, which is defined as the store. Like that's where we get that. Let's see, there we go. And from that, we're going to get the new to do. And that's pretty much that. Any advice for separating UI logic from business logic? I think that's what we're doing in this particular system. Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty decent MV model. I mean, in this case, when people talk about the model view controller MVC, I think this model is more along the lines of a model controller combo, which would be the reducer, and then the view, which would be, well, like for example, the to-do add. But, we've done a nice thing here, right? So if you wanted to change the logic of how the state works and all that's managed, you basically go to this one file, store.ts, and change the mechanics. And then, your UI should hopefully just pick that up if it's done well. Okay, so the value of this is going to be the new to do. And then the on change is going to format one of these, a call to dispatch. Yes. Okay. So we're taking an event, and then we're going to dispatch that. Now, what we could do is we could go in here and just manually do type and then set new to do and all that. Yeah, we can do that. So, and then the payload would be the event target value. But sort of by convention, people have action creators. So these are little itty bitty functions that basically just set up the event that you're going to then send to Redux. So let's go and make those as well. All right. And we'll do that over in actions. And I'll just bring in the action creators because honestly, again, a lot more typing. So this is... yeah, actions type. Okay. But otherwise, everything's cool. So we've got all these little functions like add to do. In this case, we've got set new to do that we just wrote. And basically, it just takes a string, a text string, and then it formats the action for you. So it's just a nice way. And then when we get to thunking, which is the way that you do asynchronous parts of this, then... well, it's a bit more complex because this action creator is actually going to take a dispatch. It's going to generate a closure, which takes a dispatch, and we'll get there. Yeah. So lots of boilerplate. Yes. Okay. I think that's it. I think we're good. So let's go and bring in set new to do as that function. And so in this case, we would dispatch the result of set new to do with the value, which it's a little bit cleaner. Okay, I'll bite. It looks better. And then in this case, I want to on click and no event needed. And we're going to dispatch the add to do. Isn't that the right one? Cool. And we automatically brought that in. Oh, nice. Okay, so this is pretty good. But we won't be able to see anything because this to-do list over here is empty. I mean, we can do that. And this is actually a good sign that this got set to null or an empty string, because that meant that it actually worked. So but we don't have our to-do list hooked up to this, so let's go do that real quick. All right, let's go over here and do some copying and go into to-do list, do some pasting, and come back here. We are going to dispatch stuff eventually from there, but let's just go and get our list of to-dos first. And then put that in there for that. So here's an interesting thing. Okay, so who was it that did the Valshio? It was a David. So David, here's the cool thing that I think about all the new state managers. Notice that I do this like state store there. You don't need to do that with like a Valshio or a Zustand. What you get back from them is type safe inherently. You don't need to then kind of coerce it. Because useSelector doesn't know which store it's getting any of this from, it has no idea what state is, which kind of stinks. So you have to do this state store and then tell it, oh, wait, it's a store. So I do think like some of the newer state managers have improved vastly that connection there. You don't need to do that with the newer state managers. Okay, let's take a look. Let's save that. Hey, okay, cool. So we now have the ability to add to-dos. That's real good. But we can't toggle anything. We can't update anything. Can't delete anything. So let's go and just real quick go through that. So for our checkbox, we've got a checked, which is the to-do done. And then on click, because it's a clicker type thing, we're going to do dispatch. And then give it the toggle to do with the to-do.id. I would say pretty clean. And again, use reducer has exactly the same surface. So if you use a use reducer, you give it a reducer function and an initial state, and then it gives you back a state and also a dispatch mechanism. So it's exactly the same. So really cool. All right, and then our to-do text is doing well there, but we need an on change. That's going to take an event. And then it's going to dispatch a update to do with to-do ID and then the new value. Sweet. And then finally the button. Button. Who's got the button? That's a reference to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You know what I'm talking about. The original one to not Johnny Depp. Anyway, great movie. But I always wonder, is he really doing Charlie any favors giving him this Chocolate Factory? I mean, there's OSHA violations all over the place. This is a nightmare, this factory, this chocolate factory he's given Charlie. He's not doing him any favors. Okay, so remove to do. I think that's what is it, delete to do or remove to do? One of those. Good Lord, there's a lot of things going on there. All right. Remove. Let's go and add. Delete to do. That's what it is. So that's the last one. Delete to do. All right, let's try this out. So I'm going to go and update some stuff. That looks good. All right. Not that these are great names. So whatever. Hello. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's right. Yeah, I'm telling you, Charlie got the short end of the stick there when it came to the factory. You don't want that place. It's got all kinds of OSHA violations. So it looks like we're good. Okay. So the only thing we need to do to kind of round out our example is to finally implement this load function over here. And, you know, I designed this whole thing to kind of show off various parts and pieces of of state management. And one of those, of course, is asynchronous work. So here we need to go and grab the contents of this JSON file. I'll go and open it up so you can see it. Basically got all these to-dos in there. We're supposed to go fetch that and then dispatch back to the store that we have that. So I'm going to go and write this real simply first, and then I'm going to use Redux Thunk, which is, I guess, the approved way of doing it. But let's just start off by using a pretty simple mechanism here. So I'm going to fetch that. And then I'm going to get the JSON, or I'm going to get text back, which I need to convert to JSON, or convert back into a JavaScript object. And that's going to give me data, which in turn, I want to dispatch back to the store. So I need that dispatcher. And I also probably need I need an action as well. So let me do that. And I might not even have an action for that, so we'll see. Okay, so use dispatch, which I need anyway. So there you go, dispatch. Cool. Do I get rid of that for the moment? And I'm going to dispatch. Do I have like a set to-dos? Oh, I do have a set to-dos. Is an action that takes an any. Oof, that's not great. Oh, that's kind of cool. It imported it into a commented out import. That's neat. Set to-dos, and then we give it the list of to-dos. Oh, wait, hold on. The data. There you go. Nice. All right, let's try it out and see if it works. Hey, it works. So I'm supposed to get the dinner fixins, cook that dinner, and eat that dinner. That's great. Okay, so, but this isn't the right way to do it, because when Redux first came out, and this is a pet peeve of mine, I came out without support, and it still to this day has no support for asynchronous work built into it. In order to do that, you add what's called the Thunking Layer, or the Thunking library. And that's one of many ways to do it, but that was the one that people kind of glommed onto right away. And what Thunking allows you to do is when you dispatch an action, if it returns a function, then the Thunking middleware that you put in there, God, this is terrible, will also then allow you to do an asynchronous action. It'll give you a dispatch, and then you can dispatch that action when you're done. So it allows you to do, it allows you to do asynchronous work. So let me restart this and take a look at the comments, because I'm seeing some cool stuff in here. Random Rabbit, wait, Valshio says you can use Redux. Yeah, so there's lots of things nowadays that use the Redux dev tools. I think they basically created an open interface for any kind of state managers, because we've got this proliferation of state managers, so people, they want that. Okay, so in order to make this thunking thing happen, we need to go and add that as middleware to our store. And by the way, the last time I heard about thunking before Redux was like Win 16 to Win 32, where Win in this case means Windows. So, I mean, we're talking old school stuff. Okay, so in addition to create store, we need to apply middleware and then Redux Thunk. And then down in our create store, we're going to add middleware, apply middleware, and with Thunk. All right, let's take a look at our app here. And it works, still works, great, cool. So basically what happens is if your action creator in this case, or if you dispatch just a plain old JavaScript object, like, this one, this is basically, delete to do, takes an ID, it goes and gives you back a POJO that you then shoot off to the thing, that's fine. But if you if you have a if you return a function, then you get into this thunking world. So let's go and create that thunked function and take a look at it. So, oof, geez, yeesh. Let me go and get the right types in here as well. And I think store needs some definition, so it's getting that too. Jeez. So much boilerplate. Okay, so now we have a new action creator called getToDos. You give it a URL, and it in return gives out a thunk action, which is this function, an async function, and that takes a dispatch. And then once you're done with getting your URL of to-dos, you then dispatch a new action, and that is the synchronous action at the end of it. I wonder if they got the name Thunk from the Thunks. It felt a lot like that in Win16, Win32, and it feels a lot like that right now. So that's why, I mean, we're talking about Random Rabbits, talking about, and Dave talking about like using David about Valshio and Zustin. You don't need to do any of this stuff with those. And as I showed, like you don't really need to do that with right now. I was able to implement this fetch using just an onload, that's totally doable. So you don't really need to use this, but that's fine. Okay, so we're going to get that new function called getToDos, that new action creator, and we're just going to do dispatch. Come on, Jack. It's Friday, but it's not that much Friday. With getToDos, I'll put that in there. Okay, cool. Nice. All right, so basically we dispatch that action. That in turn returns a function, and then that triggers the thunking system, which then goes, oh, okay, you're one of my special asynchronous functions. Cool. I will give you a dispatch, and then you'll go off and do your thing. And once you're done, you'll dispatch. So let's see if it actually works. Probably won't because, and it does. Yay. Cool. Okay. So there you go. And it's all TypeScript. It's all type safe at this point, which is great. So there you go. And if you really are interested, I think I've gotten enough feedback right now where it's like, okay, I probably should do one on Redux Toolkit. So I'll endeavor to go and make another video on using Redux Toolkit, which should be hopefully a little less boilerplatey and a little bit more type safey. So, or even as type safe or better. Not that I know how you do better. But there you go. So how much time do you have left? Ooh, we got 15 minutes. Ooh, that's going to be tight. Okay, let's take a look. So while you guys are mulling over that, let me go and just do a quick run through of the other video of the week, which I thought was as cool, which was the unpackage module federation thing that Jacob Ebby did. And so let me go back over here into our TMP directory. And I do have something in there already. So let's move that over to unpackage. Let's see. I called it like Jaher slider, even though it wasn't a very good slider. So let's now clone that again. And I'll show you how this works. This is actually really, really cool. So module federation. So this is a feature that's baked into Webpack 5 that allows you to go and share code, bring in code at runtime into an application. And we had been, I think, looking at that through the lens of, let's just take Alex's example of he works on the product detail page of an e-commerce site, right? And you might have like a product carousel on that PDP page, product detail page, that you would then want to share with some folks on the homepage. But normally that would mean extracting that carousel into an NPM library, and then they'd have to version it and upload it and blah, 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 blah. And what a pain in the butt that was. And they, like when Alex would go and change the carousel in that npm package. He'd then have to go publish it. The homepage team would then have to go and update their version of it in their package JSON and publish a new version, which is not great. So what Module Federation allows you to do is do that at runtime. So we're going to go and create a let's see, I'm going to call it Jahur. And the reason I'm going to use my name on it, Jahur, is that we're actually going to publish this to NPM right now. I'm going to call this MF slider 2 because this is the second time I've done this, and there's already a slider not 2, slider 1. And then I'm going to go and create a new file in here called like slider.jsx. We'll import React from React. And then we'll import, well, let's see, what's some good stuff? So we'll import grid and maybe button from Chakra, because the kit that I have automagically has Chakra built into it, which is nice. Chakra is my favorite UI framework at the moment. We'll create a grid. It'll have some, well, we'll just create a grid, whatever. It doesn't really matter. The formatting on this doesn't really matter. So let's see, button left, button right, which would be the slider control buttons. And then we're just going to say this is slider 2 version 1.0.0. So this MF slider that was a libs that had the name libstarter is really a starting point for a library. So what is there anything else I need to, we need to expose it. That's the one last thing we need to do. So we'll call that slider and source slider.jsx. And that's going to go and actually, hey, Random Rabbit, see you later, man. Thank you for coming by. All right, let's go into our Jahur MS Slider 2 and we'll do a yarn. That should be pretty quick. There's only just like Chakra and React. And then we're going to use a build. We're just going to build a distro of that. We'll wait for a little bit on that one. Oh, baby. Now we're talking Module Federation. This is great. Okay, so, all right. Looks like we're good. Took a while. Not sure why. 13 seconds. Night, Simon. Have a good one. And then we have a thing. We're actually going to send this up to, there we go, 1.0.0 to NPM right now. So this is actually going up on NPM as we speak. And this is why NPM has hundreds of thousands of packages, is because people put this kind of stuff on here. Like, I'll never really use this, but there you go. Yeah, Simon, you really should check out Chakra. It's really, really good. If you like a nice, beautiful toolkit out of the box that also has Tailwind style ability to, kind of make tweak changes and stuff like that, margins and padding and all that, it's awesome. Oh, okay. Good night, Rabbit. Or good night, Simon. Good night, Moon. Okay, so now let's go over here to our unpackaged consumer starter. And what I need to do. Okay, so my package name, I'm going to go change that to Jahur MF Slider 2. I really should get that name exactly right. Otherwise, this is going to be not really embarrassing, but whatever. Oh, Lord. I published that under the wrong name. Okay. I'll have to republish. All right. Embarrassing number 1. We now have a thing on NPM called whatever that was. Oops. All right. Yarn build again. I don't probably think I need to do that, but I will anyway. Actually, I do think I need to do that because the web, the Module Federation stuff probably needs it. All right. And let's again publish that. It's going to allow me to do 1.0.0 because it's now that. And then let's see. So I'm going to go over here to our Webpack, paste that in there. And so what this is now going to do is it's going to format this string, the unpackaged thing, and let's go see if it's out there. So I'm going to do that myself. I'm going to just go and take the names as written. So let's see. Jahurima slider 2. Put that in there for the name. And then 1.0.0. Hey, it's already up on Unpackage. That is totally cool. Nice. All right. So this is good. All right. This should work. So let's go over here to our app. And let's see. We're going to go and import that. We're going to import our slider from the slider. And this value here, slider, is what you would put in here for the exposes. So that's how that matches up. And then let's go and see if it works. All right, let's go take a look. React. Well, let's go and make another. Ooh, that was interesting. Nope. React unpackaged consumer, yarn. Jack, will your new job have a direct impact on your ability to post new content? Probably. Actually, I took enough time off between the old job and the new job to stack up a bunch of good videos. And I do think that, so the cadence won't change. Okay, well, it's ugly as sin, but it works. So that actually got us slider 2 at 1.0.0. And notice I didn't do NPM anything. I just went and got this from Unpackage directly into our app by just adding it to our Webpack, saying that there's this remote out there. And here's the cool thing. We also have a version on that. So let's go and bump the version, and then we all can wait together for quite a long time while this works. So hold on, let me go over to Chakra for a second. And look at grid. And I want the grid to be like multiple columns. So here we go. I'm just gonna. So that's going to be our fix. We're going to push a fix up 1.0.1, and it's going to have 1FR, 5FR, 1FR, the gap of 6. That looks good. And then we'll call this 1.0.1. Okay, let's now build that again. That's going to be too subtle, I think. No, it's not going to be particularly subtle because of the way that the buttons are going to lay out is going to be entirely different. So here's the trick, though. This is going to take a little bit. This is going to take probably 5 to 10 minutes before this actually gets up there, which is, well, okay, here, I'll show you. So we'll publish first. All right, so we'll take a look over here. And this should happen fairly quickly. So if I go to 1.01, no, all right, it's not up there yet. So what happens is that this 1.0.1 goes up. You know, so what I published NPM. I guess Unpackaged probably sits on the end of their fire hose of changes, and it starts up its process of actually, you know, publishing the code. But the only weird thing is that we'll get this 1.01 pretty quickly, within a minute or two, but the caret 1.01 actually won't show up for a little while. So yeah. And that's actually I put a little thing in the video, like we're waiting on this. It was actually a good 5 to 6 minutes. So if you have any questions, now would be a great time for it because we're just waiting at this point. But we also need to go over here and change this Jahurima slider to, well, actually, you know what? This should work because of semantic versioning. It should automatically pick up 1.0.1 as soon as it's published, and Unpackage points us at it. So let's take a look again. Nope, still not there. Anyway, anybody have any questions from the TypeScript stuff, the TypeScript Redux stuff? Let me know. Meantime, I will take a drink of water because I'm really parched. Or let me know what you're doing for the weekend. I watched Monster Hunter. That was terrible. Okay, so it looks like 1.0.1 was published. So now let's take a look and see. Okay. So no, and it, okay, so step 1 is out there. So, oh, and actually, you know what we could do? Here, I'll show you. We can accelerate this a little bit. So I'm going to go and change this to 1.01. And then start it. And there you go. Now we've got our 1.0.1 slider. And if I wanted to downgrade, let's just say that blew up. Ooh boy, that was not a good upgrade. I could change that to 1.0, start it up again. And now I'm back at 1.0. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So the only thing I'm not doing right now is the caret, which, in a couple minutes, this will actually resolve that way. So that's really the trick with this one, is you're really dependent on Unpackage's SLA of resolving the semantic versioning right. And that's what changes the timing on this. But otherwise, I think it's actually a really cool paradigm for doing module federation versioning. And not having good versioning like that was actually, I think, a sticking point for a lot of folks around module federation. And one of the reasons that they didn't want to go and adopt it was that they couldn't easily control a version of the federated module that they're importing and roll back in the case when it didn't work. So I think this actually allows you as much control as you would have over NPM. You now have it on module federation, which is awesome. So runtime sharing with real versioning, it's great stuff. Okay, let's see. Is my caret going to work? Nah, the caret. Okay, so currently Unpackage still has yet to update, and it probably won't update until after I sign off. So sorry about that, guys. But, if you want to see that, go check out the video. Bang. What is that going to do? Okay, so no, I don't know. Yeah, it still keeps pointing to 1.0, even if I do caret 1.0. Okay. Anywho, is it compatible with private NPM registries? Haha. Of course it is, except that you would need an unpackage equivalent on top of your private registry. So let's look at self-hosted unpackage. Or unpackaged server, right? So you could run this. You could point it at your private registry, right? And then you run it in a cluster, and then you put Akamai on top of it, and then you get to control essentially the time to TTL on that one. So, I mean, Alex, you and I both know where you work. It's a big e-commerce company. I'm sure that you could use this pattern, but you would have to put either this or write your own. I mean, this has 12 downloads, and it's not, whatever. You'd have to go and do the unpackaged side of this yourself. So yeah. Hi Jack, just watching your videos. Thanks for all the amazing content. Thank you SR for showing up. Thinking I might add this versioning to my Valshio project. Ooh, cool. That's always good. Seems like publishing thing in our own cache in the Cloudflare CDN. Yeah. So what you'd probably end up doing is you'd host like this unpackaged server on top of your private registry, right? And then you'd have probably another cache buster page that would go and send the command off to Cloudflare to bust this unpackage. And essentially, like this guy, you'd bust this URL, and then you'd go and get 1.01 immediately as soon as you wanted it. So that's the trick there. What's my approach to learning new technologies? Forgetting them constantly. So I always need to relearn stuff. The beauty of being a dyslexic is that I have terrible short-term memory and not much better long-term memory. So I'm always learning new stuff. Always needing to learn new stuff. How do I do it though? That's a great question. And I've actually been thinking about doing a video on that sort of stuff. Like 5 tips for junior engineers from someone who's been in the industry way too long. So like me, and part of it is around tips and tricks on, kind of keeping up to date with new technologies and doing proof of concepts and all of that kind of stuff. So, okay. Anyway, I'm going to sign off because this has been great. So thank you all so much for stopping by. I am going to jump on the Discord server for a little bit, just to say hi. And if you want to talk, I'm going to be over in the voice channel over here or the video channel, and we can have a chat. Oh, wow, look. I guess the rocket's been doing rocket things for a while. So come on board, check it out, have a chat. I'm not going to record this, so you can ask me any questions that you want live, and